Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to cilinixfxcapital, and welcome to this new video with a very bright light in my head right here. But welcome to this new video. I wanted to do a bit of an emergency update. It's been a while since I did one of these, but I was looking at the charts and I was having some thoughts. And I thought, why not make a video? And it's a bit spontaneous, this. So I don't really have a script, or I don't really have things I want to talk about, which I usually do have. But I wanted to do a full video on what's going on right here and what to expect, right? Obviously, there's been a lot of bearish pressure. The markets, like the volume right now is already $22.2 billion, which is extremely high for a Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon, even if you're watching from the US. And outside of that, like the S&P 500 E-mini futures, which will open in about 3 hours, a little bit less, are not even open yet. All right, and usually, or at least the last time the markets crashed because of tariffs, FUD, and trade war, etc. What you saw is that it happens after that market opened. All right, so the volume is already extremely high. It's happening very, very early, and that's quite strange, right? And it also means that there's still multiple things on the table, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Because what you see right now from Bitcoin, especially from the order flow, is that what basically has happened is that a huge amount of shorts have been opened, basically since this afternoon. That was very much ramped up right here, as you can see, at I think like 2 hours ago. Then we had some massive long liquidations. Like I think these are the highest liquidations we've seen in a while. Not in the last couple of months. We had much bigger liquidations in February, but still pretty big. And then what you can see right now is that we actually have some shorts being closed and some longs entering the game. But ultimately, it is still super uncertain, of course, all right? And that is going to remain the case. So I said this in my live stream, and I will repeat it right now. Look, it's up to you. But for me personally, these are not the circumstances you want to trade. All right, so for me, there's basically two different scenarios right here, all right? And you can take a look at the 1 hour time frame right here. The 15-minute time frame is looking a bit better. I mean, I would still like to see some sort of a break of structure here, but which we haven't really seen. But for me, the most important level is this level right here, very specifically at 80,700. That is the value area low right here, as you can see. But basically that area between 81,000 and 80,200, that's the most important level. All right, because what I would like to see on the 1 hour time frame is that we reclaim that level. All right, and you can see we also, at least for now, we have some fair value gaps there. A pretty major one here at 81,000. The best case scenario for Bitcoin right now is that we reclaim that level with volume, all right? We need to do that with volume. We reclaim that level, and this was one big long squeeze, manipulation, and we're back into this range. That's the best case scenario, all right? That this was all just one big manipulation by market makers, whoever, and that the S&P 500 opens relatively strong in about 2.5 hours, and that we see this. Worst case scenario, though, is that we retest these imbalances, that we retest that value area low at 80,800, and we see a rejection with volume, all right? Then we will most likely drop down lower, all right? And how low is always difficult to say, but what I like to say is expect the worst, all right? Expect the worst. So the current bottoms are at 77,000, expect at least 69,000, and well, I would say that level is a good level to expect. That's a major support level. Then we also still have a major imbalance. So I'd say that's the worst for now. Obviously, lower is a possibility, but still, I think that's good enough to take into account for now. But these are the two scenarios, all right. And like I said earlier, it is almost impossible for me to predict which one of these two is most likely, all right? Because what it is going to depend on is very much how the equity markets, or at least how the futures for the equity markets are going to open. Now, what I do want to say is that I've been through a couple of these periods where people really thought, all right, this is the start of a major downtrend. This is the end. The stock market is going to drop down. More often than not, that's not actually true. All right, so that in combination with that, I think the stock market, at least last week, was in a bit of an overreaction, makes me inclined to say that the stock markets, at least over the next 24 hours, will be relatively good and that we can actually see some recovery. And therefore, I would say this is most likely in my eyes. However, like I said, I mean, there isn't really edge here, all right? The only people who can really know this are the people in the administration of the US and maybe some top tier economists, all right? So therefore, even though I lean towards expecting this, and by the way, this is also still possible if we drop down a bit lower, right? We could also do something like this. Something like this. And then something, a reclaim like this back into the range. So I would say like this is a little bit more likely, but for me it's like 55% and then 45% is a rejection from here. Ultimately, what you need to know and what you need to do is watch how we react to that level at 80,800 and see how the futures for the stock market open. All right, if the futures for the stock market are going to fall again with volume, Bitcoin's going lower. All right, if Bitcoin is going to reject hard from 80,800 with volume, we're going down lower. All right, if we reject with not a lot of volume, or if we're able to reclaim that, or if the futures for the equity markets are a little bit more good, if they recover a bit, if they move a bit higher, then we can do this. All right, but those are the two scenarios. Both of them are on the table. These are not the times to trade. All right, I will be back with more videos tomorrow morning. Hopefully we have a little bit more information then, and we can be a little bit more certain about one of these two scenarios. But personally, I would say this is more likely. But this scenario is what I would take into account if you do have positions and if you are trading. Those are my thoughts. All right. Hopefully that's valuable to you. Even though I just said we can go up or down, but honestly, that's the truth. All right. Take care. Be safe in these market circumstances, and I will speak to you all tomorrow.